It is 8:33 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 7th day of the 7th month of 2026. This is episode 1347 of Bitcoin, and I made a complete mistake yesterday on Daniel Prince's Once Bitten podcast, which may be dropping today. I don't know if the episode is about Cathedral is going to drop today or tomorrow, but in that episode, I said that I was on episode 1446. That is not true. That would be 100 episodes more than I have actually done. So my apologies for anybody who heard that and was, thinking that maybe either I've lost my mind or I was straight up lying. I just simply made a mistake, because me talking at any time before 9 o'clock a.m., well, it has a tendency to be, fraught with difficulty. And here we are at 8:34 a.m., and I'm doing the exact same damn thing. I'm talking before 9 o'clock in the morning. So just, give me a break. All right, just give me a break. Today, we're going to be talking about the United States Bitcoin Reserve hitting a snag. And, well, it's probably because of a turf war more than anything else at this point. And then Trump, he may be letting Bitcoin into the Trump accounts. I don't, well, I guess we'll get into it later. Coinbase has secured investment service license in the UK, so they're bringing their bullshit across the pond. The U.S. Congress has got to pass the Clarity Act before August, because, they missed their July 4th deadline, which is what they were kind of shooting for. And now they've got, the Clarity Act has one more chance to pass. I'm not saying it's a good bill. I'm also not saying it's a bad bill. Some people say, it's, hey man, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And other people are saying that it's evil incarnate. I don't really give a shit. I honestly, at this point, I don't trust any of these people. I don't trust Congress at all to do anything right for either the United States population or the global population as it comes to figuring out a way to get money back. Because we've literally lit it on fire. It's like the Joker in the Batman movie, where he just lights a giant pile of money on fire and says it's about sending a message. What message could they possibly be sending us when they continuously devalue our time upon this planet? Because that's what money is. It is a representation of the time we spent giving value in this life. And when you just print the very same instrumentation that is used to verify our time on this planet, you're not stealing our money, you're stealing our time. So what message is that sending? Second half of show, RGB and UTEXO gonna enable private Lightning settlements because USDT is returning to Bitcoin. Yes, Tether is coming back. Although, frankly, it kind of never really left. People just started using different blockchains because it was faster. But now it's coming to Lightning, and we've got a little bit of information about that. The New York lawsuit that is seeking to secure, I don't know, a whole bunch of, like 39,000 wallets. This guy, John Doe or whatever, Juan Doe, I can't remember the guy's name. Anyway, he's saying that all these dormant wallets are his under New York law, and somebody has said, yeah, screw a bunch of that. And again, we're going to continue on that thread of that New York lawsuit, because the Digital Chamber has delivered an amicus brief, and we'll tell you about it. I promise. TeraWulf is going to be in the news, as well as Galaxy is going to be in the news. And let's see here. What else do we've got? I think that's going to be it for the day. So let's start at the head of the show. U.S. Bitcoin reserve hits a snag as federal agencies are in debate for control, according to Bloomberg. Braden Lindria and Felix Ng is writing for Cointelegraph here. The Trump administration's push to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve has hit a snag as the Commerce and Treasury departments are at odds over how the reserve should be structured, but moreover, which agency should have primary oversight over the holdings. So they're fighting over Bitcoin. Commerce Department and Treasury Department are fighting over who gets to control Bitcoin. So it doesn't look to me like people in the U.S. government have lost interest at this point. So they're definitely still interested in Bitcoin. Trump's March 2025 executive order called for the SBR to be housed inside Treasury. Other agencies would assist with asset seizures to build that reserve. However, concerns have emerged over whether the Treasury has any legal authority to manage the Bitcoin holdings, partly because of its volatility, Bloomberg reported. Now, the Commerce Department has emerged as a contender to oversee the reserve. The Department of Justice is also reportedly working with the departments to determine legally available options. Now, the Bitcoin reserve is a key part of Trump's plan to make the U.S. the crypto capital of the world, marking a major shift in the government's approach to digital assets by positioning Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset rather than a simple seized commodity, quote, to deliver on the president's vision. The Trump administration continues to evaluate the best structure for a strategic Bitcoin reserve and U.S. digital asset stockpile, White House spokesperson Liz Houston told Cointelegraph. Efforts have been made to codify the Bitcoin reserve in Congress through the Bitcoin Act and ARMA Act, introduced in May, which seeks to acquire 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years using budget-neutral strategies. One of the White House's top crypto advisors, Patrick Witt, described ARMA as version 2 of the Bitcoin Act and said the White House had spent significant time examining the legal implications of creating such a reserve. Quote, it's a breakthrough as far as getting everything in place, legally sound, properly safeguarding the assets, Witt said at the time. Under ARMA, Bitcoin must be held for at least 20 years unless it is sold to reduce America's national debt, which is, nearing $40 trillion. Despite the interagency issues, many industry advocates say the SBR could strengthen the case for Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. Quote, the Bitcoin reserve isn't just bullish for Bitcoin. It validates an entirely new category of capital allocation, Tim Kotzman, host of the Bitcoin Treasuries podcast, said. Quote, public companies moved first. Nation states are beginning to follow, end quote. Indeed, while 15 nation states do hold Bitcoin, El Salvador is the only country that has formally established a Bitcoin reserve and is making routine purchases. That's the end of the article, but I will add this caveat: making routine purchases as far as we know. We're not exactly sure, but it seems like El Salvador is still buying 1 Bitcoin a day, although it's kind of hard to actually prove if it's going into a wallet that is actually held by El Salvador. It's actually closer to being held by President Bukele himself than the actual country of El Salvador, but we just don't know. There's a beauty in that. Okay, so let's stay with Trump a little bit, because getting into this next article, we're going to be talking about Trump accounts. Now, these are the accounts that the United States government has said, hey, look, man, if your baby was born during, Trump's second presidency, then we're going to put $1,000 in this account for your baby under your baby's social security number. Keep that shit in mind. It's slave number. But it's going to be invested in the stock market. It's so transparent, it almost makes me laugh if I wasn't crying so hard as to just how nefarious that shit really is. Because you might say, why do you hate that? Why do you hate Trump? I don't. But this is simply to bolster the stock market. I don't think it has as much to do with your child's future welfare as it does with, well, the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Let's just say it that way. But from Bitcoin Magazine's Micah Zimmerman, President Trump signals openness to Bitcoin in Trump accounts, calls himself a big fan. I hate this language. I hate it. President Donald Trump said earlier today that Bitcoin could possibly one day play a role in the new Trump account saving program, telling reporters that, quote, something could happen, end quote, when asked whether the accounts might hold the cryptocurrency. Something could happen. Something could happen. Hey, I could walk out my door and something could happen. I'm sorry, it says nothing. It's bait, dude. It's just bait. Trump made the comments Monday during an Oval Office ceremony marking the launch of Trump accounts. In a first-of-its-kind event, he rang the opening bells for both the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ from the Oval Office, a joint bell ringing that had never been conducted from the White House. He was joined by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Paul Atkins, leaders of the NYSE and NASDAQ, and technology executive Michael Dell and his wife, Susan, who pledged more than $6 billion to supplement the accounts. Pressed on whether there were plans to add Bitcoin to the accounts, Trump did not commit to a timeline, but used the moment to describe his shift toward digital assets. Quote, well, I'm a big crypto. I've become a big crypto guy only for one reason. If we don't have it, China is going to have it, and they would like to have it. But now they're not even trying that hard because we've taken over in crypto, but I'm a fan, end quote. I'm pausing to say that is word for word. And I love the first sentence. Well, I'm a big crypto. Well, hey, Trump, I'm a crypto too. Holy shit. He credited the sector's scale and its appeal to voters for drawing him in. Quote, I realized there are a lot of people who love crypto. And even me as a businessman, I'd see a lot of money starting to come in with Bitcoin, end quote. He said Bitcoin was being used at levels that nobody understands, really, and repeated his framing of competition with China. He also veered into other subjects. He said the United States leads China in artificial intelligence, tying that lead to his approach on energy permitting for data centers while criticizing wind power. He also confirmed he had spoken with FIFA President Gianni Infantino, however you pronounce it, to seek a review of U.S. forward Folarin Balogun's red card suspension. FIFA's independent board reversed the ban on Sunday, a decision that drew objections from Belgium and other figures in the sport. I'm so over the World Cup at this point. I don't care, and I don't care to see the Viking anymore. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then lucky you, because it means you haven't seen Twitter in the last 72 hours. Trump accounts created under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that Trump signed in 2025 and referred to in Treasury guidance as 530A accounts, launched July 4th, 2026. Each is a tax advantage investment account for a child. On July the 4th, the government deposited one-time $1,000 seed contributions into accounts for more than 500,000 children. Children born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028, who are U.S. citizens qualify for that federal deposit, and families can contribute up to $5,000 a year. Funds are locked until age 18 when the accounts convert to a traditional individual retirement account. The remarks fit a pattern from Trump's second term. In March 2025, he signed an executive order establishing a strategic Bitcoin reserve and a U.S. digital asset stockpile. And then they talk about the Clarity Act and the Genius Act in a couple of other paragraphs. And then the article ends. So it's a huge nothing burger is what we just went through. But it's demonstrative of how politicians, whether red, blue, green, purple, black, or white, will just say words and essentially keep the momentum going. And in this case, Trump's momentum is that he was essentially, we elected him. And I'm not talking about the American people. I'm talking about it was the Bitcoiners that pushed Trump over the edge. I really believe that. Actually, not just the Bitcoiners, the wider, and I hate to say it, the wider crypto community, but it was really that gave Trump the edge. And he really hasn't come through on the other side of that. He says things like, I'm a big crypto and something could happen. But if you read anything into that as, oh my God, he's going to put Bitcoin in the Trump accounts, don't read that way. He has literally said nothing at all. He's just keeping the momentum of the Bitcoin part or the crypto part that got him elected alive. He's just he's throwing breadcrumbs at a starving pigeon is sort of the way that I look at it. And it's not because he's Trump. It is because he's a politician that I say, don't trust him. Just don't. Don't trust any of these freaking people because everything they say, there's an ulterior motive to them. Speaking of motives, we're going to go to Coinbase, who has secured a UK investment service license to add derivatives and equities trading. Have fun, UK. Coinbase Global has received authorization from the UK Financial Conduct Authority to provide investment services, expanding its regulatory permissions beyond crypto. That's the important point. Expanding its regulatory permissions beyond crypto. The authorization will allow institutional and advanced traders, you can read that as sophisticated investment folk, to access crypto, equity, and commodity perpetual futures, while retail users will be able to trade equities on Coinbase for the first time, the exchange said. Now, according to the statement, the UK Investment Service authorization marks the largest expansion of Coinbase's UK product suite since the company entered that market. The license sits alongside Coinbase's existing UK e-money license and crypto registration. Coinbase said the authorization is a step toward its everything exchange vision, which it described as a single platform where users can access stablecoin payments, savings accounts, borrowing, crypto, derivatives, and equities with tokenized real-world assets planned for future expansion. Quote, we believe crypto is the foundational architecture of the modern financial system, and the gap between traditional and digital finance is closing fast. The UK is now one of the first markets where users will see that convergence or what that convergence will actually look like, end quote. That's all we really need to go through on that, is that Coinbase is now expanding well beyond its crypto beginnings and its cryptocurrency and Bitcoin frameworks. It's now fully legacy financial infrastructure in both the United States and the United Kingdom. And honestly, I can't think of a worse company to be behind this than the idiots at Coinbase. And if for no other reason, the fact that they cannot keep their server room from burning down every time there's some kind of massive rise or massive fall in Bitcoin. But again, this is essentially doing nothing more than bringing absolute financial garbage to a whole new population that they were not able to fleece before. I will never, ever, how to say this? There is not one single person on this planet that will be able to convince me that a derivative is anything but full-blown gambling. Specifically, full-blown gambling where the house always wins and the people that own the house have no interest in your future well-being whatsoever. If you're playing derivatives, you're handing people that hate you money. That's what you're doing. There's only one price signal for anything, whether it's a commodity, a car, a durable good, I don't care. It's what a human being is willing to pay for that item. Betting on futures of car sales as a derivative does not set price. People will tell you it does. It doesn't. And it's the same for oil and gold and silver. And you'll say, but David, they do set prices. Can't you see the prices in the stock market? This is all fake. These are all fake numbers now. Everything has been buried under so many layers of crap that we can't really see what's going on. Thank God for Bitcoin. Now, the Circle P is open for business, and today I am bringing you sourceoftheseed.com. It's a website from my friend Texas Slim and the Beef Initiative. It's launching soon, but you can sign up to see what the hell that they're going to do. It looks to me like Texas Slim is about to release and drop quite a bit of news. I'm not sure what. He texted me earlier today with a massive 51 tweet thread that basically goes all the way back through his history of the Beef Initiative and where he was before the Beef Initiative and a lot of personal stuff. And that signals to me that he's ready to get into, I believe this will be round 3 of Texas Slim kind of exploding onto the scene. So go to sourceoftheseed.com. That's source of the seed, all one word, sourceoftheseed.com, and just drop your email. If you can always unsubscribe later if for whatever reason you don't want to get those. But Texas Slim has done a lot for the beef industry in the United States. He's done a lot to raise awareness about the health benefits of eating red beef, red meat, which includes more than just beef, but beef especially, because beef is part of the American heritage. It's part of the American story. Ranchers, cattle drives, the old West and cowboys and shit like that. It's more entrenched in American culture than I think many Americans themselves actually understand. And you kind of don't understand it unless you're like me, somebody who is absolutely in love with the American desert Southwest. That would be everything essentially from Austin, which is technically not the desert Southwest, but through West Texas, which is all the way up through New Mexico, Colorado, all the Rocky Mountains. There's something about it. And we have really lit the American rancher down. And Texas Slim is one of the people that's trying to rectify that. So go to the sourceoftheseed.com, sourceoftheseed.com. Give them your email. Like I said, if you don't like what they start sending out, unsubscribe. It ain't that hard. On to this one. U.S. Congress absolutely, positively must pass the Clarity Act before August. So they've got 3 weeks. They have literally 3 weeks left. Atlas 21 has it. The Clarity Act was not signed into law on the 4th of July, as White House advisor Patrick Witt had hoped in May. The symbolic deadline passed without a vote, and the window for passing the legislation now narrows to a matter of weeks. 7th of August 2026 is the last day of the Senate session before the summer recess and the start of campaigning for the midterm elections. According to those following the negotiations, technical work is continuing regardless. Committee staff are still attempting to reconcile the versions drawn up by the Senate Agriculture Committee and the Senate Banking Committee. Once an agreement is reached, the public session required for a vote could last only a matter of days. And the problem, CoinDesk reports, is that the House of Reps is going through a period of procedural deadlock that is also weakening any sense of urgency back in the Senate. The thorniest political sticking point remains the ethics clause following the annual financial disclosure of Donald Trump, President of the United States, who declared approximately $1.4 billion in income from digital assets in 2025 alone, including royalties from his meme coin company, token sales through World Liberty Financial, and transfers to an Abu Dhabi fund. Senator Elizabeth Warren explicitly called for the final text to prevent presidents, vice presidents, senior officials, and members of Congress from profiting from the sector. Senator Ruben Gallego, one of the two Democrats who voted in favor of the bill in committee, reiterated that without building ethics standards, he cannot guarantee his floor vote. The question of Trump's income does not change the substance of the negotiation, but it gives the Democrats a concrete figure to use as leverage. Also read as ammunition. August is approaching. The question is whether Congress will manage to close a negotiation that has been stalled for months in the space of a few weeks, or whether the summer recess will become, in effect, an open-ended extension. This shit isn't going to get out. The Clarity Act, it's not dead, but it's not, I'm just going to call it, it's not going to make it. It's not going to make it to the vote. They're going to go to recess. Clarity Act is going to be held in suspension. Nobody's going to look at it again until after the midterms. And the midterms, I still don't think, unless Trump drops a October surprise, I don't think it's going to go the Republicans' way. I don't really want to see the Democrats come into control, because I think the great guts and feathers of them don't give a shit about Bitcoin and will literally expend serious amounts of energy to stifle what's already been built. And if that happens, we got an extended Bitcoin bear market. I don't want to see it. I'm kind of tired. I've been through like 3 bear markets. I'm kind of done. Hey, at least I'm being truthful with you. Let's run the numbers. CNBC futures and commodities. Something's going on in the Middle East. Brent North Sea is up almost 3 full points to 74.05 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate oil is up almost 3 points to $70.48 a barrel. Natural gas is also in the green, almost up a point to $3.27 per 1,000 cubic feet. Gasoline, however, is in the red, 1.16% to the downside to $2.96 a gallon, and Murban crude is up over 3 points to $68.70. Metals are mixed today. Palladium is up a third, but gold is down a third to $41.52 7 dimes. Platinum is up 2/3 of a point, but silver is down over 2 points to $61.08. I feel bad for the people that bought over $100 an ounce. God, it's got to suck. Copper is down a third as well. Coffee is down 9.24%. But chocolate, which was up double digits yesterday alongside coffee, is actually still up today. So I don't know what's going on with coffee and cocoa. I had conjectured yesterday that the double-digit price gains that both coffee and chocolate saw yesterday was something to do with the Venezuelan earthquakes. And now I'm not so sure, because coffee is down almost 10 full points. Let's see. The biggest winner today is cotton, 3% to the upside. And then live cattle is down a half point, lean hogs down 2 points. Feeder cattle is in the green, but essentially moving sideways. The S&P is down a half, but the NASDAQ is down almost 2 full points today. Dow is down 1/3 of a point, and the S&P Mini is down just over 1 full point. And we got a $63,900 price on Bitcoin. That is still a $1.28 trillion market cap. And we can only purchase 15.4 ounces of our favorite shiny metal rock with our 1 Bitcoin, of which there are 20,053,082.39 of. Average fees per block are elevated at 0.03 Bitcoin on a per clock basis. No, 0.03 Bitcoin on a per block basis. That's fees right there. There are 48 blocks carrying 95,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority rates of 2 sats per VByte. Low priorities will get you in at 0.7. And we have a drop in hash rate, but only to 922 exahashes per second. I remember just a couple of years ago when we were at like 300, 400 exahashes per second. This completely and has forever not concerned me. So if any of you guys are out there freaking out saying, oh my God, we're never going to see a exahash again, or I mean whatever, I can't remember what's after exahash. It's not Tera. Whatever it is. Whatever the next exponent is, I don't care. 922 exahashes per second is more security than you're ever going to need. Now, from Sailor Sells Seashells, by the seashore, yesterday's episode of Bitcoin, and Jason High with 250 sats says, I'm not sure if these sats are true, but I heard that the highest percentage of sociopaths in the world per capita are in Washington, D.C. Yeah, most likely. Oh, and if you hear what's going on outside, there's a garbage truck, and I forgot to close the window. My apologies. Nick Dose with 237 says, cheers. Right back at you. And BTC on board with 100 has a row of emojis that I can't read because, my operating system is literally that old. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. USDT returns to Bitcoin. RGB and UTEXO enable private Lightning settlements. Juan Galt writing for Bitcoin Magazine. Tether, the company behind USDT, the stablecoin, is preparing to issue that stablecoin natively on Bitcoin through the RGB protocol version 0.11.1. Deployed by the UTEXO software lab, USDT is set to return to the chain where it first launched in 2014 via the Omni Mastercoin layer. God, that is a name I haven't heard in a while. UTEXO, the company leading the commercial rollout, has positioned itself as the issuer and distributor of the Bitcoin native USDT in partnership with Tether. Quote, finally, after 8 years of development, if not more, we are the company that is launching USDT over Bitcoin with strong support from Tether, said Victor Inutuek, I can't pronounce it, the co-founder of UTEXO, in an exclusive interview with Bitcoin Magazine. The RGB protocol combines its novel client-side validation with the Lightning Network for instant, private settlement while anchoring security to Bitcoin's UTXO model. Users can expect to be able to handle USDT on native Bitcoin addresses as well as send and receive it over the Lightning Network with compatible wallets, of course. The RGB protocol on Bitcoin offers significant privacy features to USDT users as the asset benefits from Bitcoin's UTXO model, which standardizes fresh addresses for every transaction compared to the account-based address reused commonly in EVM blockchains like Tron, Ethereum, and Solana. Address reuse is the very first mistake of on-chain privacy, yet most altcoins built their interfaces to indeed reuse addresses, despite the risk it poses to users. RGB's integration with the Lightning Network further protects user privacy by moving USDT via the off-chain payments network, which leaves very few marks on the public blockchain. This deep integration with Tether also means that there are fewer middlemen companies charging extra fees or collecting data. On the topic, Victor emphasized, quote, "We built UTEXO so that USDT could move on Bitcoin the way money is supposed to move, instantly, privately, and with no surprises on costs. Our partners integrate our API once and can route USDT on the most resilient open network ever built with full control over cost structure," end quote. And then they get into a little discussion on UTEXO versus Tron. But I want to read I want to read past those paragraphs to this one. RGB, which is sort of like, that's sort of the structure that we've been, that USDT and UTEXO is using. There's some history here. RGB traces its roots back to Peter Todd's single-use seals back in 2014 and was formalized in 2016 by Giacomo Zucco and Riccardo Casada. The RGB acronym, originally derived from Riccardo Giacomo Bitcoin, was later rebranded Really Good Bitcoin. Tether explored the protocol early but faced delays with the previous team. Had RGB shipped on schedule, which was 2019, the stablecoin landscape and broader DeFi industry might have developed differently around Bitcoin's UTXO model instead of Ethereum's account-based system. As such, bringing USDT back to Bitcoin is a core motivation for UTEXO. Victor minced no words on the matter. Quote, "For the first time in 8 or 9 years, USDT is coming back home. We have no chance to fail. If we fail, no one will think about Bitcoin as a settlement layer anymore," end quote. USDT on Bitcoin via RGB is expected to be launched within weeks, possibly this July, with wallets like the Tether wallet, among others, announcing support and exchanges across the world announcing integrations. That's the end of the article, not at the end of the bitch fest. This quote bugs me. Victor is the co-founder of UTEXO. And here's the quote that's pissing me off. "For the first time in 8 or 9 years, USDT is coming back home. We have no chance to fail. If we fail, no one else will ever think about Bitcoin as a settlement layer anymore." Bullshit. Bitcoin's future does not depend on the success or failure of UTEXO and the RGB protocol bringing USDT to Bitcoin main chain and via the Lightning Network. It's hubristic. It is, what's the other word that I'm looking for? You know what? It doesn't matter. I'm so tired of people saying I and my endeavors are the sole cause of whether or not Bitcoin succeeds or fails in the future. That is such bullshit. This could fall flat on its face immediately, and you know what's going to happen to Bitcoin? Nothing. It's going to mint blocks. It's going to do difficulty adjustments. It's going to give miners subsidies. It's going to validate transactions. It's going to keep them safe forever and ever and ever. That's exactly what Bitcoin is going to do. Sailor could literally die in a flaming airplane accident over the southern Pacific Ocean. And you know what's going to happen to Bitcoin? Nothing. Peter Todd could say something bad about Bitcoin. You know what's going to happen to Bitcoin? Nothing. I don't know where I don't know where these people are getting this sense that they are the sole proprietors of Bitcoin's future, when they are not. When you hear people talk like that, you would do well to not ever listen to another freaking word that they ever say, because they are full of shit and they are full of themselves. Which means if they're full of shit and full of themselves, then maybe themselves is shit. Just saying. All right, so let's start talking about that New York lawsuit. And if you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, either you forgot or you don't know, you'll remember or you'll become aware of what the hell's going on in New York after these two news articles. Dormant, $1.9 million in Bitcoin tied to New York lawsuit moves after nearly 15 years. Zoltan Vardai and Johan Yoon writing for Cointelegraph. A dormant Bitcoin address transferred 30 Bitcoin, worth about $1.8 million for the first time in almost 15 years. Bitcoin address 1KV47 is the first few digits of the Bitcoin address, made its first outgoing transfer on Saturday since receiving 30 Bitcoin in August of 2011, blockchain data shared by Galaxy Research shows. The address is among 39,069 listed addresses in a New York lawsuit filed by Noah Doe and two Wyoming-based companies seeking ownership of dormant Bitcoin holdings. The case could test how inactive cryptocurrency holdings are treated under the state's lost property laws. Now, the listed addresses include those widely associated with Bitcoin creator Satoshi Nakamoto and collectively hold an estimated 3.7 million Bitcoin worth $234 billion, according to Sani, founder of analytics platform TimeChain Index. More dormant Bitcoin addresses tied to this New York lawsuit have been waking up. 31 of them have moved a total of 17,527 Bitcoin in June. That's up from 5 that transferred 4,800 BTC in February, according to Galaxy Digital head of research Alex Thorne. On Friday, a defendant identifying themselves as John Doe 33, who claimed to control one of the dormant Bitcoin addresses, filed a motion to dismiss the entirety of the lawsuit, arguing that Bitcoin addresses are merely data strings and those cannot be sued. A New York court can adjudicate rights in intangible property, but it does not have the authority to convert public addresses into, quote, found property, just because the plaintiff copied these addresses to a hard drive. Edwin Mata, lawyer and CEO of tokenization platform Bricken, told Cointelegraph, and he added, quote, the core flaw is that inactivity is not abandonment. Under property law, abandonment generally requires intent to relinquish rights, and a dormant Bitcoin address proves none of that, end quote. The Bitcoin addresses named in the lawsuit may also represent Bitcoin held in long-term cold storage, coins with lost keys, or simply a holder who refuses to move them. Without private keys needed to control the assets, the foundation of the lawsuit remains, quote, very weak, Mata said. All right, so the lawsuit, okay, let's look at it this way. The lawsuit was brought by this Noah Doe, who's too much of a chicken shit to give his real name. And I did not realize that you could actually sue somebody sue an entity or collection of entities or whatever under an assumed name in public. I had no idea. I thought I would have sworn to God that you would have had to actually identify yourself in public, but I guess not. I guess that means from an anonymous standpoint, I can sue anybody for any reason. And nobody will ever know who it is. I call bullshit. I think you should have to actually give your name, but whatever. That's not the point. The point is that this dude is seeking to claim the contents of 39,069 Bitcoin wallets with $237 billion worth of Bitcoin. First, it's not going to work. Second, even if it did, even if a New York court, like let's say that one of my addresses, one of my Bitcoin addresses of cold storage is included in that. I have not been notified through my wallet. I have not gotten any messages, so I don't know if one of my wallets is included in this lawsuit or not. But let's say it was. Let's say that I got a message through that wallet address that said, "Hey, you've abandoned your property and we're going to take your Bitcoin because New York's going to rule in our favor. You know what I'm going to do? Nothing. I'm not even going to move the Bitcoin because they don't have access to the ability to vector that Bitcoin to anywhere other than what I can do, right? They don't have my private keys. They will never be able to touch that Bitcoin. They can claim it all they want, but it's not going to matter. It's just not going to matter. But here's the thing. This is one of the things that I've been wondering about. This lawsuit is doomed to fail. What the hell is Noah Doe doing? I'll tell you what he did. He kind of did what the United States was doing in Venezuela before we picked up Maduro, and what we've been doing for a long time. We've done this in the Middle East quite a bit. And the Israeli intelligence does it too. They bomb something, and then they monitor electronic signal traffic. What does that mean? Telephone calls, text messages, and they don't even really care about the substance. They want to know the timing of what node reached out to what other node, like somebody texted another phone. They don't care what the text message is. They just want to know what phone number sent a text message to what other phone number in the seconds after a bomb dropped in, like, let's say, Tehran. Because that gives a lot of intelligence. It basically lights up a room that is inherently dark, right? So you start seeing connections. You start seeing who's moving. You start seeing who's trying to get information. And all of that is intelligence that can be used to make a target list, to do other things, to work out how big the network might be. There's all manner of shit that can fall out of that. That's what Noah Doe has effectively been able to do. I don't know if that's what Noah Doe's intent is, but in a very real way, he's literally caused, it's 31 addresses moved in June, and that's up from 5 that moved in February. So let's say they now have a track on not by name, but which wallet addresses are listening to this lawsuit or is aware that this lawsuit, and they're the ones that are actually scared or scared enough to move their Bitcoin. Now, exactly what would you be able to tell from that? I'm not certain. But that's not the point. The point is somebody dropped a bomb, and this is the effect. And I think that they're probably looking for the effect. What addresses are moving what Bitcoin to where, given the fact that this bomb has just dropped? Something to think about anyway. If you're one of these people that is listed in the lawsuit and you know that you're listed in your address is listed in the lawsuit, you know what I would do? Absolutely freaking nothing. I'm just saying. We're still on this story though. This is another Cointelegraph article, also written by Zoltan Vardai and Johan Yoon, but this is about the Digital Chamber amicus brief urging the dismissal of this New York lawsuit. Blockchain Trade Association, the Digital Chamber, filed an amicus brief in the New York lost property case, which seeks ownership of thousands of dormant Bitcoin addresses. The Monday filing is the second amicus brief in the case. It opposes the claim of ownership, arguing that treating dormant wallets as abandoned property would create, quote, a pervasive cloud on title across self-custody wallets, end quote. Digital Chamber argues that a ruling based on the plaintiff's theory would undermine the foundational principles of digital property ownership, with negative ripple effects reaching the traditional finance industry, end quote. The amicus brief was filed in a lawsuit brought by Noah Doe and 2 Wyoming-based companies in late May. And let's see, is there anything other? Because they basically go back through everything that we've already gone through. Digital Chamber describes itself as the oldest and largest digital asset trade association, representing over 250 members, including crypto exchanges and banks and investment firms and other industry participants. Some of the long dormant Bitcoin wallets named in the lawsuit have been waking up. Yes, we know. We already read that. And that's about it. So we've got the Digital Chamber filing the second amicus brief, which is basically, hey, shh. Oh, sorry. That's my dog is freaking out. Hold on. My deepest apologies for shushing you when I was actually trying to shush my dog. Hey, things happen when you're doing stuff live. So the amicus brief is sort of like a friend of the court. Hey, we're, or rather not a friend of the court as much as a friend of, in this particular case, the other side of the lawsuit, which basically says you can't claim this as abandoned property. This case, I doubt very seriously is going anywhere, other than it's going to cost the state of New York a lot of money, because they, for whatever reason, it always does. And even, like I said, even if they were to prevail, they can't do anything with the addresses. They don't have the private keys to the addresses. The only thing that I could think of that would come out of this, if they won, and this guy says, okay, well, now I've got these 39,000 wallets, is to look where people send Bitcoin from those wallet addresses and try to track it down and find the information of the person that did it, and then sue them personally back in the state of New York for the amount of Bitcoin that they were trying to get out of these wallets. It's all bullshit. That's why even if I were to find out that one of my wallet addresses was named in this lawsuit, I am not a New York resident. They have no jurisdiction over me. I live in Eastern Washington. I would rather be in Southwest Colorado or West Texas. But if I lived in Colorado or West Texas or where I live now, New York State has no jurisdiction over me. I do not give a fuck what the state of New York does, says, mandates. I don't care. I'm not a resident of that state. They have no say over what I do. Okay. Let's get into mining a little bit. Bitcoin mining stocks jump after TeraWulf signs a $19 billion lease with Anthropic. Before we do this, I want to make a caveat here. There's a lot of people that are like, oh my God, all these Bitcoin miners are abandoning Bitcoin. They're not. They're expanding their operations. And I've said it before, who would you rather have in the driver's seat of providing AI with its back-end power than people that have cut their teeth on the hardest digital asset, the hardest asset, whether digital or analog, that the planet has ever seen? I don't want legacy people getting into this shit. I don't want them having all the control. And what we're seeing is people that have learned how to do this through mining Bitcoin, how to make power contracts, who to call, how to get stuff done, how to get electrical contractors and building contractors. I want the Bitcoin people that have cut their teeth on all that to be the people that provide the power end. And I mean power as in not just electrical power. I'm talking about like cooling and electrical contractors and the people that build the buildings that and put all the servers in. I want Bitcoiners who are doing that. TeraWulf is not just, it's not like they're getting out of Bitcoin totally. They are expanding their operations, which is a good play for them. Why? Because they know exactly how this works. It doesn't matter whether it was a Bitcoin miner eating the electrons or an AI GPU eating the electrons. They know how to build these things. And I would much rather a Bitcoiner who has been a Bitcoiner do this than a bunch of patsies from Elon Musk. So let's get into it. It's written by Andrew Hayward. Bitcoin miner TeraWulf is placing a major bet on artificial intelligence, striking a 20-year lease with Anthropic, that the company says it could bring roughly $19 billion in revenue while shedding part of its stake in a separate Texas data center project. Shares of TeraWulf spiked following the announcement, recently trading at $24.05, nearly a 14% jump on the day. However, the move appears to have boosted confidence across the slate of Bitcoin mining firms that are increasingly leaning into AI compute, with Iron shares up more than 13%, Hut 8 up more than 12%, and Cipher Digital rising 11%. Under the deal announced on Monday, Anthropic will occupy a purpose-built campus at TeraWulf's Justified data site in Hawesville, Kentucky, a facility expected to eventually support 401 megawatts of compute capacity. The first phase is slated to come online in the second half of 2027, with the site reaching full capacity by early 2028. And TeraWulf said that the lease is expected to be supported by an investment-grade credit rating. The Maryland-based company, traditionally known for Bitcoin mining, has been pivoting toward AI infrastructure as demand for compute power used to train large language models has surged. Anthropic, the AI company behind the Claude chatbot, is one of several major players racing to secure long-term power and data center capacity as it scales up its models. In a separate move, TeraWulf agreed to sell 50.1% stake in the Abernathy joint venture, a Texas data center project developed with partner FluidStack, to an investment group led by FluidStack itself. And the transaction monetizes TeraWulf's roughly $450 million investment at a premium to invested capital. FluidStack will take over leadership of the project going forward. Quote, "When we announced the Justified Data Campus acquisition in February, we told investors that we expected to secure a major customer commitment by around the end of the second quarter of 2026. The timing of today's announcement reflects the completion of final documentation and customary transaction processes, and we are proud to announce this landmark partnership with Anthropic," said TeraWulf Chairman and CEO Paul Prager. Again, I would much rather Bitcoiners that have cut their teeth on power contracts and all the other stuff doing this than anybody else. But we're not quite done. Galaxy delivers 133 megawatts of critical IT load to CoreWeave as Helios Bitcoin mine turns AI hub. From the block, Naga Avon Nomeo is writing, Galaxy Digital completed the first phase of power delivery to its Helios data center campus in West Texas, handing CoreWeave 133 megawatts of critical IT load under a 15-year lease and marking the site's transition from Bitcoin mining to revenue-generating AI infrastructure. The delivery covered roughly 200 megawatts of gross power on schedule, with rent commencing under the Phase 1 lease in the second quarter of 2026. Helios began as one of North America's largest Bitcoin mines, a 180 megawatt facility that Galaxy bought from Argo Blockchain for $65 million in 2022, before winding down mining and retrofitting the site for AI and high-performance compute workloads. That same pivot mirrors CoreWeave's own path. The GPU cloud provider mined Ethereum before the merge, ended proof-of-work rewards on the network, and then rebuilt around AI compute, making the Helios lease a deal between two companies that both exited crypto mining for the economics of AI power. So that's all we really need from this one, from this article. Because that, what I just read, is an example of a couple of people who are getting out of Bitcoin mining. So there's two flavors of ice cream here. There are Bitcoin miners that are staying in Bitcoin mining but expanding to include AI infrastructure and AI compute. Then there are people that are fully pivoting from Bitcoin mining to AI infrastructure and AI compute. One will win and the other will lose. Can you guess which one? It's going to be those that fully pivot away from Bitcoin mining, because you don't really need to do that. You can scale, you should, if anything, you can scale back Bitcoin mining and go into AI compute, but you're going to want to stay into Bitcoin mining. It's going to be the Bitcoin miners that hold their convictions and hold Bitcoin mining compute capacity alongside building a different revenue stream. That's the smart play. You already have it. Why spend money on conversion when all you really should be doing is spending money on expansion? The smart money is spending their money on expansion. What'll end up happening is that we do have an AI bubble, but don't think that I mean that to say that AI is a fraud and AI is going away, and one of these days the bubble is going to burst so bad that everybody's going to lose their money and nobody's going to ever see AI again. That is false. That would be a false prediction, because that is exactly what is not going to happen. There is a bubble in AI, just like there was in the interwebs. Back in the day, 1998, 1999, and then the bubble collapsed in 2000. That was the dot-com bubble bursting. I am speaking to you on the internet, and I use several .com websites to do that, right? My host is Podhome. That is not a .com site, it's a .fm site, but you get my drift. Websites still exist. The internet didn't go away because the internet bubble popped. AI is not going away because the AI bubble is going to pop. It will pop. When it does, it's going to hurt a lot of people financially, and it's going to literally destroy and wipe away trillions of dollars of value, except chances are good we could look at that value as never having occurred in the first place, because at this point we live in a world where all money is fake except for Bitcoin. So that's sort of where I'm approaching this from. But AI itself is not going away. The people that will find themselves more resilient will be the people that expanded into AI infrastructure. And when demand eventually starts dropping for AI compute, especially at the very, very first part of the AI bubble popping, people are going to pull back. The people will be able to just de-rack the GPU units and re-rack a whole bunch of Bitcoin miners. They'll have that capacity. Whether they do it or not, I don't know. But they'll have that option. And it is more survivable to have options than to have no option. You see where I'm going with this? Even if Bitcoin isn't making you as much money as AI could make you, if you've end up with a problem in AI, you can revert back to Bitcoin mining, or at least, go from, like, let's say 50, if you're at 50% Bitcoin, 50% AI, and you start moving to 75% AI and only 25% Bitcoin mining, but you still have all your gear, you still have all your trainees, you still have all your corporate know-how on how that shit works. If a Bitcoin or if a AI bubble pops, you find yourself where it's like, well, dude, we're overweight AI. Well, we can move back to Bitcoin. The people with the option will have more resilience and therefore more survivability than the people that are like, let's just get out of this Bitcoin mining and go full bore AI. Those are the people that are going to get hurt the most, because they will not have a platform to fall back on that still generates known amounts of revenue for a known amount of expenditure. So that's the lay of the land so far. And that's the end of the show today. I hope you did enjoy the show. I hope you got some value out of it. If you did, please consider donating to the show by boosting the show on any Podcasting 2.0 platform, because it locks into Bitcoin wallets and Lightning wallets. It does it. Podcasting 2.0 applications are just the best way to experience podcasts in the new world that we find ourselves entering into. If you're still using something like Apple Podcasts, dude, don't. Just go to use fountain.fm. Just go to fountain.fm and you'll find your way to getting the application on either your Android or your iOS phone, and enjoy chapters, enjoy transcripts, enjoy all manner of stuff that Podcasting 2.0 does that legacy podcasting apps don't. If you're still using a legacy podcasting app, I don't know what to tell you. Please, please, please consider getting into Podcasting 2.0, getting a Podcasting 2.0 app, and donating to the Bitcoin and podcast. And I will see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.